The following instructional presentation will explain the responsibility of Harbor Express Services drivers in relation to the transportation of foreign national crew members, superintendents, and all other passengers for vessels. All foreign national persons who are passengers in Harbor Express Services vehicles are subject to the laws, policies, and procedures of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. All Harbor Express Services drivers are required to check and verify the issued status for every passenger transported in Harbor Express Services vehicles prior to providing transportation services. Every person transported in Harbor Express Services vehicles will be categorized by one of the following statuses recognized by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. A U.S. citizen or resident alien. Who is a U.S. citizen? A person can become a U.S. citizen in several ways: by birth, being born in the United States or certain U.S. territories, through parents, having one or both parents who were U.S. citizens at the time of birth, even if born abroad, through naturalization, a process by which a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder, applies to become a U.S. citizen after meeting certain eligibility requirements. A resident alien is a person who is not a U.S. citizen but is considered a U.S. resident for either immigration or tax purposes. The specific definition varies depending on whether it is used for immigration laws or tax laws. From an immigration perspective, a resident alien is an individual who has been granted the legal right to live and work permanently in the United States. This status is also known as lawful permanent resident, LPR, permanent resident alien, or green card holder. Harbor Express Services drivers can verify the status of a U.S. citizen or resident alien with a valid current driver's license or ID card issued by any U.S. state, U.S. passport, or permanent resident card. C1D visa status. This is the most common status crew members will possess. In the context of U.S. immigration, a C1D visa refers to the combination visa required for foreign crew members of international sea vessels or airlines to be transiting through or working temporarily in the United States. This status is made up of two parts: C1 visa, a non-immigrant transit visa for crew members traveling to the U.S. as passengers to meet and board aircrafts or vessels they will be working on. C1 status is issued to crew members upon arrival in the United States by aircraft and allows them a limited time to either board their assigned vessel or depart the United States via air travel. Once a crew member with C1 status boards their assigned vessel, the C1 status is revoked and the crew member must remain on board until the vessel departs. D1 visa, a non-immigrant crew member visa for individuals who will provide services on board a vessel or aircraft and depart on the same or another vessel within 29 days. Harbor Express Services drivers can verify visa status of crew members or passengers by asking to inspect their passport and/or I-95 card, commonly known as ShorePass. The customs visa status will be indicated on a stamp issued by U.S. Customs and Border Protection at the airport upon arrival or on the vessel upon inspection. If a passenger cannot produce a valid document showing their status, the driver should immediately contact dispatch for approval before providing transportation services. Failure to verify immigration status can result in the issuance of fines or arrest for the illegal transportation of non-U.S. citizens. D1 status crew members on shore leave are not allowed by law to carry their passports. By law, D1 crew members on shore leave are only allowed to carry their valid I-95 shore pass and a photocopy of their passport. D1 status crew members who attempt to disembark vessels for shore leave with their passports should be instructed to return the passport to the captain of the vessel for safekeeping. B1 visa, commonly held by vessel superintendents, technicians, or owners' representatives. A U.S. B1 visa for temporary business visitors, allowing travel to the U.S. for business purposes such as attending meetings, consulting with business associates, or negotiating contracts, but not for employment. B1 visa holders must maintain residence in a foreign country, show strong ties to their home country, and clearly demonstrate that their visit is temporary and for specific business reasons. If a passenger presents any other status or cannot produce documentation showing their status, Harbor Express Services drivers must immediately contact dispatch for approval to provide transportation services. Failure to report questionable U.S. CBP status can result in fines, arrest, and termination of employment. Repatriation. Definition: the act or process of restoring or returning someone or something to the country of origin, allegiance, or citizenship. When assisting crew members with repatriation to their home country, Harbor Express Services drivers are to use the following documentation and procedures. All CBP paperwork should be completed prior to leaving the vessel with the crew members being repatriated. Before completing the following steps, the driver will obtain the passports for the repatriating crew members from the captain of the vessel. The passports will be held by the driver until the party has reached the ticket counter at the airport. CBP Form I-408, Application to Pay Off or Discharge Alien Crewmen. This form allows CBP to change a crewman's status from D1 to D2, allowing them to depart from the U.S. on an aircraft or a different vessel other than that on which they arrived. This form can be obtained from Harbor Express Services' offices. This is a triplicate form that must be filled out correctly prior to leaving the vessel. This form must be signed by the master of the vessel's agent, or a vessel superintendent. Failure to fill this form out correctly will result in the denial of repatriation by CBP. The driver should retain at least one copy of this form to be turned into Harbor Express dispatch with trip tickets. CBP Form I-95, Crewman's Landing Permit. This form should be presented to CBP along with the landing permit stamped D1 that was issued upon the vessel's arrival in the U.S. The date stamp must be less than 29 days from the departure date on the I-408. The CBP officer who issues the D2 status will retain the D1 copy and issue a new stamp on the new I-95 with the stamp showing the date on which the crewman must depart from the U.S. How to complete the CBP Form I-408 or application to pay off or discharge an alien crew member. Step 1. Obtain a signature from the vessel's master, commanding officer, superintendent, or agent. If possible, a ship stamp should also be placed next to the signature, but this is not required. Step 2. Fill in the carrier or the vessel's arrival information. This tells the CBP officer when the vessel arrived in the U.S. This information can be found on the shore pass or I-95 issued to the crew member upon the vessel's arrival in the U.S. Step 3. Fill in the name, nationality, and passport number for the crew members. Note: multiple crew members can be placed on the same form if they are all departing on the same flight. Separate forms must be used if crew members are departing on different flights. Step 4. Fill in the reason for request. In most cases, the reason will be end of contract, repatriation. Note: if the crew member is departing on another vessel or any way other than an aircraft, ask dispatch for instructions on how to complete this section. Step 5. Fill in the arrangements for departure from the U.S. as instructed. Include all flight details or other arrangements up to the point of departure from the U.S. Step 6. Fill in the mailing address of the carrier or the vessel's agent. Ask dispatch for the correct mailing address for the agent. This will be different for each vessel. Feel free to pause this video to study the below diagram. Step 7. Complete a new I-95 form, shore pass or landing permit, with the crew member's information and place alongside the copy stamped upon arrival. The old and new shore passes will be submitted to customs. Note: in most cases, this information can be copied from the shore pass issued by customs upon arrival. Finally, prior to departing from the vessel, double check to make sure all paperwork is completed, signed, and ready to hand over to customs officials. Place the old and new shore pass in the crew member's passport next to their U.S. visa. Then place the passport next to the corresponding Form I-408. Upon arrival at the processing window at the CBP office, present the documentation to the CBP officer and stand back to allow the officer to inspect the crew members. Upon completion of CBP inspection, retain possession of the passports until the party reaches the ticket counter at the airport for check-in. The passports may be returned to the crew members at this point for repatriation. The driver should remain with the crew members at the ticket counter until they are checked in and receive their boarding pass. The driver should then escort the crew members to the security checkpoint. Once the crew have reached the security checkpoint, the driver should notify dispatch that the job is complete. The driver should also notify dispatch immediately if there are any issues with customs clearance or airline check-in, and wait for dispatch to find a solution to these issues. There are special occasions where crew members that do not possess a U.S. visa or are detained on board vessels are allowed to leave the vessel for medical reasons or to be repatriated due to extenuating circumstances. These situations require special written permission from U.S. Customs and Border Protection and require special arrangements. Harbor Express Dispatch will provide specific instructions for these situations. Following the policies set forth in this video are an intricate part of the maritime transportation services provided by Harbor Express Services. It is vital that all detailed steps are followed on every job requiring the clearance of foreign national crew members upon repatriation to their home countries. When dealing with U.S. CBP officials, Harbor Express Services drivers are expected to be courteous and respectful. Any Harbor Express Services employee that is found to be disrespectful, argumentative, or insubordinate to the instructions or demands of U.S. CBP officers will be subject to disciplinary action up to, but not limited to, termination. Harbor Express Services also requires that all crew members and other passengers transported in Harbor Express Services vehicles are treated with dignity and respect at all times. These procedures are in place to ensure that Harbor Express Services provides the highest possible level of service to our clients.